Let's see here. We have YouTube friends on here now and Facebook. So hello, my name is Darren Fink. I'm with Transfiguring Adoption. I am one of the co-founders of Transfiguring Adoption. And next week, sorry guys, last week we had to cancel. We had internet issues and we couldn't do it. So I put out a live real quick message to say that we couldn't do it. This week we're back. This is live caregiver check-in, Monday caregiver check-in. And we use this time so that we can mediate conversation for all of you so that you can talk and feel encouraged and hopefully get some advice, tips, share advice and tips with other foster and adoptive parents or other professionals. This is not a time for Transfiguring Adoption to run the show. It's a time really for you to run the show. So some ground rules. If you've never done a check-in with us before, is we are on Facebook and YouTube. Comment anytime that you would like to comment and share your advice and tips. Also, please share right now. Go ahead and share with your other friends that we are talking right now, because the more people we have on here talking, the more conversation we're going to have, the more fun we're going to have. But we do this every Monday at 5 p.m. Also, just the quick ground rules, the small print is that we are not legal advice, medical advice, and we are not telling you to go against what your agency or caseworker might be telling you to do. We are simply just people. We're mediating a conversation, trying to give you hope, encouragement to make it through another week, raising foster and adoptive kiddos, and all that to say, please don't sue us. So if you might notice, Margie, the other co-founder, is not with me today. Hey, Jeremiah, how are you? Jeremiah is on Facebook watching. Margie is not with me. She is actually with our children in Knoxville, letting them finish out the school year. If you tune into this regularly, you'll know that we are in flux because we are in process of moving. So my oldest son and I are actually working on the house right now, which is why I feel like I'm a sweaty mess right now. And I figured that was okay because you guys know that I'm real then, and know that I don't always have my life put together. I'm definitely in this journey with you, and I'm not always perfect and not always have the perfect answers and whatnot. I am sometimes sweaty, gross, and going crazy. So hope everyone is doing great. I want to know, in your area of the country, when are you starting summer vacation? When are you starting summer vacation? Our kids in Knoxville they're having their in Tennessee, they're having their last week of school in East Tennessee. This week is their last week. They only have half the week. When are you going to be ending school? I would love to hear that, or give me a thumbs up or just a howdy. I would love to hear from you. But one thing I would love to talk about, if you've not been in the caregiver check-in before, Margie and I will just come up with suggestions to talk about. And then if you have questions or suggestions on that, please comment them below. But one thing so here's something interesting that happened to me this week is, actually last night, is since we are moving, I had to travel across state. Had to do quite a bit of work and tying up loose ends. Didn't make it to our home until 1 in the morning, and then I had to start my other part-time job at 4:30 in the morning. So I didn't get a lot of sleep last night, but I still have to be a dad. I still have to do things. So I know I've asked a different variation of this, but I feel like I get great advice all the time. I want to know, what does everyone do so that you can make life easier? Or what do you do when you get so tired and you just have to adult, but your kids are there and your kids are demanding that you do something with them, that you make dinner for them, there are just some adult things that we have to do whether we're drop dead tired or not. So I'm just curious, what do you do during that? I find that, actually I'd love for Matthew to chime in on this, because I find that cereal is a great thing that kids can get into if you have to on the fly. And they can eat cereal. I think that's a way to make things easier. Margie would say that crock-pot meals, I think, are the easiest way to handle meals. She does that a lot, crock-pot meals. They are phenomenal. So yeah, so what do you do though to make things a little bit easier, or what are the things that you have to do where you have to adult, no matter how tired you are? What are those things that you have to adult or that you have to do, whether you're tired or not, kids are going to demand that you get this finished or you get that finished. What are some things that you have to do? Love to hear from people on that. I find that one thing that obviously you have to do is you have to get your normal 9-to-5 job done. And that can be really hard, I feel. Okay, Shelby's asking, does Margie have a place that she could post her crockpot recipe meals? She would love ideas. Actually, let me do this, Shelby. Let me see if I can go ahead, and I'm going to see if I can get Margie on here and see. She is in Knoxville. She is helping our kids go through middle school and elementary school graduation. But yeah, she would love to share some tips. Let me see if I can get her going. Hey, Dusty, how are you doing? Shelby would like crock. She doesn't have an official list of them. I know that she's gone through different recipe books and different things like that. She does, if you encourage her to, I'm sure she would put all of her things into a blog. She's always looking ideas for blogs and ways to help you guys out. And I feel like if that's an idea, that would be something great. Ooh, I have a high school senior wandering out here. Are you going to join us? Oh, no, he's going to do chores. You want to say hi? This is my Hello. Congratulations to my high school senior, Matthew. He's no longer a high school senior. He's actually down here doing some work for me, and he didn't want to do the check-in this week. He said maybe next week, so you guys might see him next week talking. So I don't know. You just have to go check.
Yeah, I was wondering if you knew where the room was.
Nope. No. You just have to go look. He's awesome. He's a workhorse. Hey, Dusty, doing good. I had an accident. We're moving into our house, and I put an electric screw through my thumb, but doing good otherwise. Shelby, yeah, suggests that Margie write a blog about that. Dusty says that she gets all of her ideas on Pinterest. Margie does utilize that as well, I know. We just had a sweet and sour meatball crockpot meal that is phenomenal. And again, you just put it in the crock pot and then it's good to go when you get home. My kids love free-for-all dinners. They get to pick their own thing. Grilled cheese, Hot Pockets, chicken tenders, cereal, pretty much anything goes as long as there is a mix of food groups. I like that idea. And especially like the contingency that it has to be a mix of food groups. I will say, since we're moving, and the reason I'm asking these questions, like what do you do when you're just tired and you've hit that wall and you've just got to do something. It seems like meals are one of those big things, right, that you have to adult because the kids expect to eat. Once you give them 3 meals in your home, they expect to get 3 meals again, right? Yeah, it's pretty much been, Margie and I pretty much thrown nutrition to the wind, and it's not completely, but we are allowing junk food and stuff a lot more than we normally would. And we're eating out a lot more than we normally would. But I think that's normal for when you're moving and stuff like that. But when you haven't had a good night's sleep and you've had to work all day and you come home from your 9 to 5 and then you have nothing left to give your family. We know we have those times. I like that idea of the free-for-all. Crock-pot meals are definitely good. I like that. Grilled cheese is always a lifesaver, right? I love grilled cheese sandwiches. Hey, Nick. Nick joined us on Facebook. Glad to see you here. What are some other situations or different things that you have to keep adulting with besides meals with kids? There's even the whole thing with putting kids to bed, right? You have to put kids to bed. Hey, Tracy. how do you deal with that when you have just hit your wall and you can't go anymore? I mean, I'm talking like the times when your head nodding and you're falling asleep on the couch. How do you deal and handle, how do you make life easier when you have to get through those adulting situations? Dusty said wine. All right, so is it white or red? I mean, does it matter? Does it matter what you do to get through that time? Let me know, you guys. And by the way, if you've never been with us, I know Dusty has been with us before. White wine, that's funny. I know Dusty's been with us. If you haven't been with us before on our Monday Caregiver Check-In, anytime that you have a question, I'm just throwing this question out so that we're not sitting here in silence, but please ask questions. Or share any advice or tips that you've found out this week or recently to share with the rest of us, because we're all on this journey together and we'd love to find out more ways to help kiddos better and to make sure that we're making it, as the caregivers, we're making it through the week a lot better. So yeah, please share any advice or tips if anyone that's watching has any. The white wine, I love that. That's funny. We, let's see. Dusty says, shout out to my husband and kids. They survived 5 days without me and there were no big issues. That's awesome. That's huge, actually. I wish I could say the same. There were no big issues, but I will say that Margie came to our temporary housing in Tennessee and she was like, what happened? Like the whole place exploded. And to be fair, I did fly down to see her for our anniversary, so I wasn't there for a few days. So maybe it all happened during that time. Dusty said she pre-planned the menu and checked in every day. Okay, so you checked in every day and just kind of made sure everything was okay. That was really nice. The pre-planned menu too, I think that's great. I know as a husband, I love it when I already have like the food stuff planned out and I know what to do. And I think that helps too, especially when you're used to being a double parent and all of a sudden you're a single parent, it helps to know what to do. Just because you have a lot more on your plate than you normally would. And it's just nice to know what the next step is. Almost like your kids, it's nice to have that structure, right? So that's another good point too. Like how do you, when you're, so I originally asked at the beginning of this because if you don't know, and some people are joining in on Facebook and YouTube. Again, just so you know, feel free to ask any questions or share any tips or advice that you have for taking care of caregivers, because it's going to make the conversation go a lot better. I'm just a mediator. I'm just going to help you guys push the conversation forward. But I was talking about, I just had last night where I've only got maybe 2, maybe 3 hours of sleep. But I'm still waking up. I still have to be a dad. I still have to do the adult things. And as caregivers with foster and adoptive kids, we just have a lot more going on than maybe the typical parent, because we have that trauma behaviors and different things going on. But I can't stop certain things. How do you make life easier? And a lot of people are talking about pre-planned meals. I love that. What are some other ways that you can make your life easier during those times when you just can't make it? Just times where you just feel like, I'm talking like the times where you feel like you're just head nodding and you can't even walk. Shelby says, weather permitting, I enforce an independent outdoor activity time for my 8-year-old. It gives me time to regroup myself. The enclosed trampoline is a lifesaver. That's awesome. Does anyone have anyone that they can call on maybe too, like neighbors or different people that the kids can run over and talk with them or just play over at a neighbor's house? I know our last neighborhood was phenomenal because the kids could go outside and play, and the neighbors were really good at watching all the neighborhood kids, and we could trust them. We had updated some folks on just different things going on, and so we felt like we could trust neighbors, and that helped too, having a support system and having neighbors that would watch, and they knew that we needed a break from time to time. Hey, Zan, glad you're on here. I haven't talked to you in a while. But what are some other tips or advice that you have for making it through that? Shelby, I love that. So getting kids outside so that you can regroup yourself. And I think that's important to remember, especially when you're tired and you're about ready to fall over, having those plans like the enclosed trampoline so that you just get a second to breathe and catch your breath. Because I think that's important, just to catch your breath, because we're, as caregivers, we're being asked to have patience a lot more than maybe typical parents. And so it's important to be able to just breathe for a little bit and just before you keep going. So definitely, that is great. But yeah, I haven't seen Margie on here lately. I will ask her about those crock pot meals, and I'll see if she'll make a blog about it. Margie is actually gearing up for some, hopefully I have new news in the future about that, some new and exciting things with Transfiguring Adoption. So hopefully we have that coming in the future here. And speaking of the future Transfiguring Adoption, if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel or our Facebook page, definitely do. And I just wanted to tell you guys, we have, actually, let me see if I can find it here. We have this artist that is actually doing these amazing illustrations for us. We have an illustrated book that we are trying to come out with, and it hopefully will be coming out at the end. An ebook format will be coming out in the end of October. And this gal is doing an amazing job making these illustrations for us. Let me see if I can find a picture for you guys. Does anyone choose, when things are getting too rough, do you choose movies? Are movies a good thing? I definitely go toward movies a lot. Actually, my son and I are going to be, we have to get some work done tonight because we need places, like we have to set up beds and stuff like that. So we have to do, there are just certain things that we, like I said, there are things that we have to do because I have to be the adult still. Let me see if I can get that to go on there. I have to be the adult still, and I have to get certain things done. So there are certain things, but we're cleaning the living room and getting it ready so that people can, our kids can come and actually have a place to retreat to. And I'm going to be, we're going to be watching a movie while we do it because it just makes it go a little bit easier, and we can have a little bit of fun while we're doing it. So I do that, and it's still a shared experience, and it's something that we're doing together. So I'm really excited about just being able to sit down and watch a movie with him because I don't get to do it that often. But do you guys use any books or media to, when life gets rough and it's hard to be an adult, it's hard to just keep moving forward and take care of kiddos? Do you guys watch any favorite movies just because that's less stressful because you can pop in the movie and you can watch that, or read books together, or what are some other activities that you guys like to do as a family? I would love to hear about different activities that anyone has to do. One thing that we like to do is our family will read a chapter of a book at dinner time. And we have a lot of fun doing that because we can all do it together. The book kind of does the thinking for you. And that's why it's nice because it doesn't take a lot of added anything. You can just sit down and just start reading, and then you have a shared experience together. And I think that's important to have shared experiences with the kids because they haven't had those experiences with a family before. So definitely very cool to have shared experiences with them. The same thing with movies. I know a lot of people they don't want to do that whole, they don't want to feel like they have the electronic babysitter, but I feel like sometimes with TV, it gives you a break. It keeps everyone focused. It keeps the kids where they need to be because they have that focus. They're not running around. It calms everyone down. And it gives you time to regroup and just catch your breath and you can let the TV do the thinking for you for a little while because caregivers, typically we have to do a lot more thinking. We have to be quick on our feet a lot more. We just have to exert a lot more mental energy and emotional energy. I don't know if does anyone else feel like that's true? Do you feel like you maybe exert more emotional or physical energy than maybe the typical parent? And so with that, I feel like watching TV as a family you're having a shared experience. Everyone's watching something together. You're able to talk about it later. Maybe not right then, but you're able to talk about it, process it later. You're all laughing at the same thing or crying at the same thing, or thinking something's dorky on the TV at the same time. It really, I know a lot of people are anti-television, anti-movies as far as kids getting too much. But I do feel like, we do need that break every once in a while. Now, personally, do I think that, that means that you sit a kid in front of the TV all the time? No, I think electronics will, I think it can get in the way of your child's creativity. It can do all the thinking for them. Like anything, you can go too far into the extreme. But I do feel like you can use it as a tool so that you can regroup. Hey, Christina, I'm glad that you're here. But yeah, for those of us, we just had a lot of folks join with us. Glad that everyone's here. Please give any suggestions or tips. I'm just kind of trying to keep the conversation going, but I would love for anyone else to chime in with suggestions, tips, or questions, just to use this as a time to mediate the conversation. Wendy says, hope the move went well. Absolutely more emotional energy in the simplest times. Limited TV is okay. Yeah, I definitely, Wendy, I'm totally with you. Like, I think as long as you watch the TV time, I think you can use it as a tool. Like anything else, I think it can be used as a tool. I mean, anything can become a vice, right? It's how you use the tool, and when it stops being beneficial, that's obviously when it's no good anymore. So, and as far as the move has happened. Not everyone's down here yet. We still got some folks in Tennessee. But yeah, we're making it. We're still unpacking and stuff. Danny says, I agree with you. We use TV together. During the week, we try to stick to educational, like nature documents or PBS Kids. Off-topic question. What are some special things you might do to help kids ease the pain and transition from termination to adoption? Ooh, I would love to get some other folks. I would love to get some other input on that. What do you do? So if I'm understanding it right, let me rephrase it and make sure I'm understanding it right. So what do you do, or what do you do for the kids when terminations happened and you're now moving to adoption? So you're going to be adopting them, and termination of birth parent rights. Wendy says she's so in on this topic. I'm guessing she means Danny's topic. Yeah, what I would love to hear any special things that people do for transition. I know one thing that Margie's really big on, if she was here, is that you need to treat that time as a grieving time, because for that child, it's like losing it is losing a loved one, but I'm talking almost like a death. Like there might have been hopes and dreams, whether they were real or fictitious and built up in that child's mind. There were still hopes and dreams of reuniting, and termination is the end. Actually, if you go on transfiguringadoption.com, it's going to sound weird. Margie, after she had a hysterectomy, wrote a blog about comparing termination with a hysterectomy, because there's a lot of finalization with both of them. For her and for other people that have had a hysterectomy, it means the finalization, like, I am not going to have a child. This is it. There's no going back. It's done. And she kind of compared that in the blog with the feelings of trying to understand how a child might be feeling with the termination of parental rights. How there's just that finalization. There is grieving. There's just sadness there, because it's done. So I think you have to. I would love to hear what special activities people do, but I do know that you need to treat that time sensitively, and just treat it with a grieving process, and understand that your child might not be on board and all woohoo adoption on with that. I don't know. Does anyone else agree with that? Christina says, talk, talk, talk. Make sure you understand that this is a grieving time, even though we are excited they may not. like the child may not be. Also know that the months after are a roller coaster. And I think that's very true, because I think just like when a child is in foster care, it's very normal for them to feel like they're betraying their birth parents if they have fun with you. It's going to be the same thing, the same emotions. They're probably excited to be adopted, but there's still that sadness. So you have these conflicting emotions happening at the same time, and your child just doesn't know how to deal with that, talk about it, or convey it. So I think you're just going to have to be very sensitive. And yeah, I agree. Talk. Christina says we go back to reading storybooks that open a talking point. You'll find some. We have a book list on transfiguringadoption.com. If you go on our book list, we actually have this there's a great book series called Robbie the Rabbit for younger kids that does a great job of explaining adoption. And if you do Robbie's Trail Through Foster Care, he actually has a foster sister. Robbie is a rabbit who is fostered by pigs. And he has a foster sister who's a kangaroo. The kangaroo gets to go back to be with her birth mom. Robbie does not. And so that one opens up a lot of emotions and talking points for that. Wendy says, I have 2 boys, bio brothers. One is super attached to me. The middle child, 12-year-old, is giving me everything he has to detach from me. He doesn't want anyone to talk about his biological mom. Roller coaster is an understatement. Yeah, I think that's going to be rough too with a 12-year-old boy, because I don't think they want to, like, stereotypically a 12-year-old boy doesn't want to acknowledge their feelings anyways, and they want to be macho. And so they probably have a lot of tangled up feelings. And so by pushing everyone away, that's the easiest. Well, and you also have that thing too, where I think they might feel that their birth family betrayed them, or not, maybe failed them. They might have those feelings, like, why didn't they try harder to get me? Am I not worth it? And it might just be in their head easier just to push people away and not have to deal with any of it. He feels betrayed by his 14-year-old brother. Oh man, that stinks. Is that because his 14-year-old brother is attached to you? I'm guessing. That might be, yeah, I could see that too. I think the hardest part is, I think a lot of people, like, they talk about how this is a journey, like foster care and adoption is a journey, and it's not, so it's not just a one-day stroll in the park. It's like years of walking. And I think it does, you see some amazing things. I will say that our oldest son, when he came to us through foster care, he was 10. Now at 19 years old, he's probably one of the most attached kiddos in our house to us. But he was, at the beginning, was the most detached, negative, wanted nothing to do with us. But over time, he has, I mean, it's been a process of learning to trust, learning that we're not going anywhere, learning and seeing us playing out love for him. So I'm actually interested. I have a friend, Kristen Segan. I'm actually interested what she would say about this. Does anyone else have any suggestions for what would you do to help children make this transition from foster care into, with the termination of parental rights, into adoption? Because I think that's a huge thing. I think that is a huge question. Oh, and I can't get Kristen's to come up. Interesting. Let's see if I can try. There we go, Kristen Segan. All right. Wendy says that's exactly it. He thinks he can push me to let him go. Yeah, and I think that's normal for a lot of our kids. I would love to hear what other people watching think about that. Like, what do you do when kids want to push you away? Especially when you have termination of parental rights and you're looking at adopting, and all of a sudden they want to push you away. What do you do? I do love the idea of still, I mean, that's what Transfiguring Adoption is main focus is using media to like books and movies. And the reason is because it's indirect. It's not directly sitting the child down and saying, hey, we're going to talk about this. It's introducing ideas and concepts so that hopefully as you lead the conversation and different things like that, hopefully you'll start a great conversation and you'll be able to get into things without having directly to do it. But you can lead things so the child brings things up and you don't have to have this talk. Wendy says, plus add in the severe trauma they went through before me. Yeah, it's any wonder that our kids can function sometimes, right? I mean, with all the trauma it's such literally a mind job. Christina says, reassurance that you're not going anywhere and that you will continue to live with them even if the feeling isn't mutual. Love, right? You'll continue to love them even if the feeling isn't mutual. Yeah, and I think that's a process too. Because I think it's one of those things where actions speak louder than words, but it takes time to show those actions. So it's definitely a process and one that you have to walk through with your children. But it's so important to walk through that. But yeah, I would say I'm trying to think of some other great books. We have some other books. Kitten and the Topsy-Turvy Feelings. And if you have, even I would say with a 12-year-old, because stereotypically our children, since they've been through trauma, they're emotionally at half their age. So this book could be good for middle schoolers, but also elementary school age is what it's really targeted at. But I think you could get away with it at a 12-year-old age. Kitten is a kitten in the story that his birth father, I think they portray him kind of like as an alcoholic without coming out and saying it. But they go through different feelings and different emotions that Kit's having about different situations. And the author, who's phenomenal, she's able to describe ways that your stomach might feel or ways that you might have conflicting thoughts about things so that children can understand how they're feeling or why they're feeling a certain way. And that gives them language so that when they're having these thoughts about like feeling nervous or anxious or sad and happy at the same time about being adopted, then they have that language because the story kind of introduced it to them and went through them. Wendy says he's at 3rd grade. Well, okay, yeah, so this book would be great for him. Let me look on that. Kitten is actually, she has, the gal that did that book has actually written quite a few other books. And there's some of them, which one is it? I'm trying to think. There's one that she's written. It's through Jessica Kingsley Publishing, I know. But she's written another one that is about a little meerkat that I think would be great too. It's Jane Evans. Okay, it's Little Meerkat, I think. Little Meerkat's Big Panic. And you can check that out on Transfiguring Adoption. Just go to transfiguringadoption.com and do a search for Little Meerkat or do a search for Jane Evans, and it'll pull those books up. But Little Meerkat's Big Panic also does a really good job of helping the caregivers understand like why kids go in a panic or how they're feeling the way they feel based on the brain chemistry and stuff. But she does a really good job of bringing it down to a level where me as an artist can understand it. So those would be great to look into too as your child's going through looking at termination of birth parents' rights and looking at adoption and having lots of feelings. The name of the book, I mentioned several. Go to Transfiguring Adoption and check out Jane Evans. Do a search for Jane Evans. Here, I will go to Transfiguring Adoption myself, and I will look it up, and I'll put the link on here. But the name of the book, I mentioned too, it was Little Meerkat's Big Panic, and the other one was Kitten and the Topsy-Turvy Feelings. And those are both, they both got really good grades on Transfiguring Adoption. If you don't know, we actually, different people send us books that deal with foster care and adoption, and we take it upon ourselves to do things that aren't dealing with foster care and adoption, like the Harry Potter series, that we think that would be interesting for your children. We also take a look, we grade them, kind of like Rotten Tomatoes or Reading Rainbow grades things, so that you can take a look. This one actually, Little Meerkat's Big Panic, got 4 out of 5 hoots, so it got a good grade. And I will put that one on there. I just put the link on there for that. Okay, so Danny says, I was emancipated just after my 17th birthday. The family that took me in expected me to be thankful and grateful, which I was, but I also was deeply grieving. I grieve the loss on behalf of the parents as much as I do for the 6-year-old. I certainly do not look forward to navigating this or the roller coaster we're about to be on. No, and I'm so glad that you're... For everyone that's watching, if you've had to go through that situation, I'm so glad that you went through the process and you are on the journey, because it's a rough one. It really is. And you can't ask the child to be thankful and grateful and feel lucky. That's probably my own pet peeve, is when people come up to me and tell me that my children should feel so lucky to have me as a father, because automatically I just sit there and think, right, they were lucky to move through 7 foster homes in 7 years. They were lucky to be sexually abused, not only outside of foster care, but within foster care. They were lucky to, like, the list goes on and on. They're lucky not to live with their birth. I mean, there's just so many things. I'm like, there's no lucky about it. It is what it is, and we're on the journey, and we're trying to make a success in life. It is a process, it is a journey, but I know that all of you guys, I'm getting so many great tips, you guys. This is so phenomenal. I know that you guys can do it. I know everyone that's on this chat, it's just, you're made of tough stuff. You're made of great, people say love, and they mean that gushy feely love. And I love caregivers because they don't have just gushy feely love. They've got like serious, like, action love, where, like what we're talking about, where it's like you're going to love and you're going to be in the game even though people are hitting you, doing things, lying, stealing, pushing you away. Like that's some real love right there when you stay in the game. And that's what I think it takes through this process. Thanks for sharing that, Danny. That you didn't have to share that personal tidbit, and I think it's so true. I know one thing that we asked a foster kiddo in our house is, we told her that, we said, you know what, we're sorry, we're like, you're here, we're going to do the best that we can while you're here, with helping you get through life, getting you set up to be successful. We don't, like, at one point she's like, well, do you expect me to thank you? And we're like, nope, not at all. We're like, this is what we're here to do. We're like, I'm sure you're not thankful for this. Why would you be thankful? And I think she appreciated that we didn't expect her to be grateful and thankful for what we were doing for her. Wendy says, my older son says he was lucky. I was the first and only foster home. His 12-year-old brother just longs for his mom. It's hard. It really is. And I think it's I don't know. What does everyone else think? I think it depends on the temperament of the child and how much they understand too. I mean, I think you're always going to have those feelings and longings for your birth family. And it's such a grieving process. It's really sad. It is there. It's a thing. It's real. I think one thing that would be good too is, even if you can get your child, if they need to seek counseling out, just to talk with someone else, if they don't, or even just let them know that that's an option. Like if they don't want to talk with you, that they need to talk to someone about it. And it doesn't have to be you. It can be like, you can find a therapist or a counselor that you trust and your child trusts, and talk with them about that. But it is a process that they're going to have to walk through, and they're going to have to revisit it, because if it's hurting him this much, it's going to, even after he deals with it, it's going to cycle and it's going to come back and he's going to have to deal with it again. Especially with things like when Mother's Day pops up. I mean, we just went through Mother's Day. Mother's Day is going to be again next year, and everyone's going to be talking about mothers. And I'm sure that, you know, like our kids even have a rough time with, yes, we're excited that we're here in this home and we live with our adopted family. But then you start thinking about your birth family. Wendy says, but how could I ever turn my back on my 12-year-old? I just long for the day when they are both happy and know it's going to be just okay. They're safe. Christina says, if you can find a counselor that is specific to foster and adoption, it makes a difference. I highly agree with that. Like, the most success that we've had is when they actually deal with foster care and adoption issues, and they understand trauma. Gosh, Wendy, I feel for you. If anyone else has any encouragement or suggestions for Wendy, please give her some encouragement right now. It's a process, and it is rough having one kiddo that's excited and one kiddo that's not. I know with our kids, our daughter that can understand things, and she's just really quick on the uptake and gets things really quick. It was easier for her to make that jump to I'm being adopted. Or some of our other kids, like I said, our oldest child, who came from another family, he just had a rough time making that crossover. And it took years and years before he was able to get there. And I think it was just repetition and just years of showing him that we were here, that he wasn't going anywhere. You know, another thing that helped for us, that I will say, was the actual adoption. For this child anyways, was because people had told him that they loved him, that he wasn't going anywhere, that he would be safe, had made him all these promises before. The turning point for him was when my wife one day was passing the courthouse and she was taking kids from a doctor's appointment, and she was able to say, oh, hey, by the way, see that building? That's the courthouse. That's where the adoption will be finalized. That's where it's going to happen, and it's going to happen this date. For him, he could actually see it, he could visualize it and think it through and say, he could put, it was physical then. It was something that he could reach, and he could see we were serious and we're doing. From that point on, it actually was a turning point for him when he could actually see that things were changing and we weren't just all talk. But with severe cognitive delay, he can't come up with sentences and doesn't understand his emotions. So we live in the sticks, and we have 6 foster homes in our county because nothing is available in this county. Oh, well, okay, Wendy, I will give you hope there. Our oldest son has severe cognitive delay, and that's the one that had, one thing that's rough there too is, with a severe cognitive delay, any change is bad. Like, any change is bad. Actually, I don't have his permission to say this, but I don't think he'll mind. Our oldest son, from our move from Tennessee to Florida, he was the only child that was not excited, like that was emphatically against moving. And it's because he wanted to stay at his school. He wanted to stay with his friends, even though he will be graduating soon and he's going to be leaving those people anyways if we'd stayed at the same home. But it's change, and he's fighting it, and he's upset. And same thing, he doesn't have language. He can't tell us exactly what he's thinking. It is. And when you don't have the services and different things, I would suggest looking through our book list. Any of the kids' books would be great for him, just to talk through things. I think for him too, I think if he has a cognitive delay, I think making it physical, because abstract isn't going to work. So understanding concepts of this had to happen so that you were safe, so that doesn't make sense to them because of the cognitive delay. It has to be physical. It does have to be, like you said, a 3rd grade level. I would even go maybe younger and say 1st grade or kindergarten. It has to be, you have to explain it like that, and it has to be physical, and it has to be, and it might just be something that they're not going to understand for a while. Christina says, we also have pics of birth family. We make sure that they know it's okay to talk about them. We don't expect them to forget them. That's huge too. And I would say that when you're making that transition from foster care to adoption, I would say having those pictures and different things like that. And then even making sure, like, we give our children, and I know not everyone's able to do that, but I'm just giving my point of view. But at holidays, we actually give our children the option to call their birth family if they would like to. As much as you can include or do something with the birth family to let them know that it's not taboo now, like that they're not completely out of their life. Yeah, I mean, I think too, like, I think it can be something that's celebrated, even though like he might not be looking forward to it. He might be having issues with it. Again, Wendy, with your situation, I think the cognitive delay is really going to hurt him. But I think eventually, I'm really hoping eventually, at least in our situation, our kiddo eventually, once it became physical and something was happening, things started happening. Again, it might be something too that one thing that helped us was if you can educate people at school, if you have a teacher that he really looks up to and really likes, if you can educate that teacher first on the situation, on trauma, and kind of give them the lowdown and kind of let them know, like, hey, he's having a rough time with this. And just letting that teacher know, like, if they hear him talk negatively or something, if they can even just say, like, talk positively about the situation. Sometimes an outsider talking to them helps you out more than you talking to them. But I would definitely, Wendy, look at those. Let me actually see if I can find that Robbie the Rabbit books. Because, and I'll put the link on there on this conversation, because I think those would be great, actually. If your son has a cognitive delay, this would be a great book to talk about with him. And there's a whole series, so you can actually take a look at this. This one's Robbie's Trail Through Foster Care. But there's also one that I'm not sure if we have on our website that's Robbie's Trail Through Adoption. But yeah, see if you can take a look. I just put it up there, so see if you can take a look at that one. Wendy says, exactly, has to comprehend it. That's hard. We have family pictures with bio siblings and mom hanging on our wall. My family wants them down. I tell the boys, your mom is your mom, and I am too. Right. I think it's important to give them history, like, hold on one second. I think it's important to let them remember their history. Yeah. Another message coming in. Yeah, so I would love to hear any other suggestions that you have. I love, Christina, thank you for sharing about the birth family pictures and talking about that, because I think that's something that I was missing. That's definitely something that I think people want to say, okay, we're adopted now, we're done with those people. But I think that's very important to keep that history there and to let your kids remember where they came from. Let them know that you're not afraid to talk about that issue. It's something that can be spoken about. I have spoken with a lot of other adoptees where that was the case, where you just didn't talk about that anymore then. And there was resentment in the future through all the stories, just because they want to talk about it. They want to know where they came from. They want to ask questions. And especially, I think, even Wendy, this will be true for you and it'll be true for everyone. Our kids, as they grow, I mean, obviously with us, our world perspective changes as we grow. I'm even thinking as a teenager, like, you see your parents as controlling, maybe sticks in the mud, they won't let you do anything. But then as you mature and age through college and then become an adult and a parent yourself, you start to see, hey, mom and dad knew what they were talking about. They did the best they could, because you start to see different situations that you're having to handle. So I think it's important to realize that our kids' world perspectives are constantly changing, and they're going to need to revisit that event in their lives of transitioning from foster care to adoption. Danny says he has an album of photos of his birth family there are serious safety concerns, so I'm not yet sure how I feel about contact. He wants to stay with us and hates visitation, but honestly, I'm not sure how he will react when it's done. I think no matter what, I mean, even if there was like serious trauma and there are safety concerns, it's still a grieving process. So your mom is your mom and your dad is your dad. And there's that special connection, that special bond there, and you can't get past that. That's something real, and it's something significant, and it's something that has to be paid attention to. While I'm not putting down caregivers, obviously, because I am one. Like foster and adoptive parents are very special too, but there's still a special connection there. There's a bond there that can't be ignored, even if there were safety issues. So you have to honor that, and you have to give that grieving process. I would say that. Danny, with you saying that, I'm glad you said that, because I think safety concerns have to be paid attention to, and that's something with our kids. Definitely with safety concerns, you have to make sure that your kids know that they're safe, because that's why they're in your home in the first place. So if there are safety concerns, I think the pictures and different things are ways to still honor their history and talk about their birth family until they're ready maybe to talk about, like our children are just, some of our kids are now getting to the point where I can talk a little bit. Again, it's because they've matured and their world perspective has changed. So because you know, we have kids that are graduating high school, I'm now able to talk about a little bit more detailed about, while they've known why that they were in foster care and they knew that they were adopted and they knew that it was for safety reasons or for whatever reasons, I'm now able to talk about details with them, and they're able to comprehend them and appreciate them and understand them more now. So I think that does have to be paid attention to, because they're in your home to be safe, and they need to feel that safety. I just know with our kids, safety, there are always safety concerns. We've been lucky enough to have it where we can have contact with the birth parents, and I will say that has been huge for us and huge for our children to make sense of everything, and know, I think, to take the fantasy out of it. Like if I was only with my birth mom, life would be perfect, because they talk with their birth family and they can see that it's not always perfect. Hey, Kristen, glad you're on. We are talking about ideas for what you do for helping your children transition from foster care when there's a termination of parental rights and transitioning into adoption, and kind of navigating that grieving process and just that hard time where there's excitement while there's also grieving too. Curious what you had to say, Miss Kristen, because she is phenomenal. But yeah, I think you do have to watch those safety concerns. The photo albums, though, are huge. Like if they can see their birth family, and just depending on where your kid is emotionally and physically, it's good too, just to be able to look at a picture and say, that's where I got my nose, or I look like that person. That's where, that's why I look the way I do. Danny says, my hope is that one day I can be the bridge to some kind of restoration. And there's always that hope. I think there's always that hope. And I think your kids will appreciate if you take that mindset that maybe one day that can happen. I think they'll appreciate that one day. And more as they get older, that you want that. And I know there are times that we've told our children that we didn't have contact, maybe, especially with, I think just even after with some of our kids and their temperaments, with some, we had time off from birth family just to give them time to adjust, go through that grieving process, and just have a break, so that they can get used to life without. And then we kind of started introducing, like 6 months, a year, whatever out, like, it's Mother's Day. Do you want to talk to your birth mom? Christina says, we have safety concerns with the bio family, so visitations doesn't work for us. But we reassure our kids that when they are old enough, we will help them reconnect with birth family if they want. I think that's good. I think that's important. And I think it's, again, it's showing that you're not scared, and you're not afraid to talk about things. It's just, it is what it is. The situation is what it is, and this is the way it has to be. So I think those are great. I think those are great. I'm actually trying to think of a great movie that you could watch for making that transition. I was about ready to say The Great Gilly Hopkins, which is also, I mean, it's a book. But the movie was so good too. The only thing is we haven't reviewed that one yet. It does have a lot of trauma triggers. And that's the reason I haven't reviewed it yet, because I'm not sure how to grade that one, because there is a lot of true to life stuff in there. It might be a little bit too real for your kiddo. But I would love, if anyone else has any movie ideas, I would love for movies about, to introduce ideas of, I guess, loss. Wendy says, I tell my boys also that I will help them find their biological mom when they turn 18, but they will continue their education first. Right. Yeah, I think, yeah, that's great. I think everyone has to figure out in that situation what is best for their children. It sounds like everyone, I love all these suggestions. I love all this conversation. You guys are phenomenal. You are doing amazing jobs. But I think, again, I think the focus is that it's a journey, and it's not, I guess, like they would always say, you know, it's not a battle, it's a war. Like, I can't think of another way to put it. It's a journey, and it's not just an immediate thing. I always have a phrase that I say, and I can't think of it right now, that goes along with journey. Not battle and war, but that's all that's coming to my head. But it is, it's something that that we're on for a while, and we don't see change right away. We're not looking at something immediate. We're looking at something like a river that carves out the Grand Canyon. We're looking at something that's going to take time and carve out things over time. So it's phenomenal. It sounds like everyone is doing an amazing job, and it sounds like you are definitely on the journey. And it sounds like you're definitely putting some good things into place. I love this conversation. It is 5:57 right now, so we keep caregiver check-in to an hour. I'm going to wrap things up. If anyone has any last minute comments or suggestions or advice that they would love to give people, I would love to hear it. Wendy says she takes it day by day and is always prepared for adventure. I think that's the best way to look at it, and just be able to take it day by day and just roll with the punches, and just be glad that you're on the journey, and surround yourself. Like when we do the caregiver check-in, I would love for more people to be on here, because I think we just talked with someone today that is afraid to talk about their journey because they feel like they should have everything worked out and everything perfect. And that's just not the foster care and adoption journey. Nothing's perfect about it. Nothing goes as planned. And it's all roll with the punches. And we need each other as caregivers. That's why we do Monday caregiver check-in. It's not that we think that we're therapy or that we're going to make this big, profound aha moment for you, although it might happen. But we just want to give everyone a chance to come together and just be able to encourage each other, share advice, so we can make it through another week with each other. Because this is a lot. It's more than typical parenting. Yes, exactly right, Wendy. This would be a great segue for me to mention that we are offering we have our Best Foster Parent in the U.S. Award is going on right now. Please go to our Facebook page, look at our past posts. The Best Foster Parent in the U.S. Award is going on. Nominations are going to be accepted through the end of May. And at the end of June, we're going to name someone the Best Foster Parent in the U.S. And they're going to get a prize package as well as a plaque with their name on it. And you'll be happy to know that the qualifications for nominating someone, we are not looking for a perfect parent. We are looking for someone that learns through the process and is doing everything they can to make sure that the child is set up for success. But we will not give awards out to people that are the perfect parent. We don't want the perfect parent, because no one is the perfect foster or adoptive parent. And that's not what this award stands for. So we're really excited. Please spread the word on social media about that. It's at transfiguringadoption.com. You can find a button at the top of the page the front page about it. Please share it on social media. Please encourage your agency you work with or friends to nominate someone. Maybe suggest that they nominate you. But definitely do that, and don't feel any shame in having someone nominate you. I think that's great. We already have lots of nominations, and we're excited to get more, and we just want to grow this thing more. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. You are amazing. If no one's told you today, you are amazing. You're awesome. You're doing better than you think you are. I know you are, because my wife and I are on the journey with you, and we know that even in your worst times and your most frustrating times, that you are making such a difference, more than you think you are. So thank you so much for doing what you're doing. For everyone that wasn't a foster parent, I saw some people that weren't foster parents or adoptive parents on here, and they just want to support caregivers. Thank you so much for watching and trying to understand what caregivers are going through, because we need more people to support us and to give us encouragement. Oh, the rain's starting. I'm outside. Thank you so much. Enjoy the journey. Come back next Monday to join us. Margie should be back with me next week. It'll be Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name's Darren Fink with Transfiguring Adoption. We hope we're helping to nurture and grow your foster adopted family. Let's see, YouTube, thank you for watching. I'll talk to you later.